Well, we have made it to December and we are now in the final home stretch of 2025. So, how are things shaping up? Not so good. So, Austin leads the Texas Triangle in home value losses. And they're particularly calling out investors who bought during the pandemic that they could risk losing equity if they are selling now. So, nationwide, a majority of homes, 53% this year, have lost some value. Nationally, Austin, it says a former tech boomtown where nothing's changed. The companies are still here. But anyways, Austin has experienced the most significant drop in average home value among major metros with a 20% decrease since the market peak. I've talked about this. It is true. I think in some sections of Austin, we've probably seen it worse, and in some maybe not so bad. But I would say on average, 20% sounds about right. What they're not saying, though, is we are still up probably 25 to 40%, depending again on the area from 2020. So values, if you just drew a straight line from 2020 to now, we're still way up. The downside, though, is there's this massive mountain peak in the middle, which was the pandemic boom. And then, of course, it says single family investors, especially those who purchased kind of in that peak, they're facing pressure from declining home values and also the flood of accidental landlords. We've talked about this as well. Leading rent declines in cities. The accidental landlords are all the sellers who can't sell. And they go, well, what am I going to do? Throw the house on the market as a rental, rent it out for a couple of years, let the market improve, and then I'll sell it. But what's happened is they can't get there. And I'll show you why in some data here in a minute. All right, well, what does that mean longer term? Well, according to Redfin, U.S. housing costs will return to, quote, normal by 2030. And that's based on stable price growth. In other words, not a lot of appreciation and moderately lower interest rates. So if you can combine lower rates will bring a little more buyer demand back to the market. And at the same time, higher supply will keep the price from taking off. If you can do that for the next 5 years, we might get back to a balanced market. We shall see. All right, well, one of the other costs that's hitting people is homeowners insurance. This says homeowners insurance costs could spike over the next 2 years. They are predicting 16% over the next 2 years. If you've been having to get homeowners insurance or you are shopping for homeowners insurance right now, you know the feeling of trying to hunt down a good policy. I think things that are really impacting homeowners right now are roofs. So if your roof is older than 10 years old, odds are it's going to have a much higher impact on your insurance. If you have a newer roof, it's one of the top ways you can keep your insurance prices in check. Well, it's not all bad news. How would you like to win a house for $10? This is real. There is a developer in East Austin. They've been trying to sell one of these fancy new builds. Haven't had any luck. So it says it's been on the market a couple months. And as you know, the market here in Austin has slowed down a little bit. So rather than waiting around for the right buyer to come along, we figured we'd put it out to the masses and give everybody an opportunity for $10. So it's a 900 square foot house. Let me see if I can show it to you. It's coming up. Where did it go? It's up here at the top. Sorry about that. Anyways, it's not showing it to you, but it's a $10 house. But here's the deal. Here's the real kicker. The house is estimated to be around $700K, and they're going to give 10% of every ticket sale to the Central Texas Food Bank. Oh, how generous. But wait, this is where it gets fun. So $700,000 rough value. The drawing's going to be on May 15th, 2026. You can enter $10. You could win a house. The owner said they're looking to sell a minimum of 135,000 tickets. Do the math. 135,000 times $10 is 1.35 million bucks. So if they can raise 1.35 million bucks, yeah, they'll give you a $700,000 house. I'm like, hey, I should be doing. Why am I not doing this on every listing? I'll just, hey, if I can raise $1 million bucks, of course I'll sell my client's house for 400 grand. No problem. So anyways, if you want to win a chance to win a house, I will put this link below in the comments. Feel free to enter. All right, let's get to the data. So again, we're still sitting in a buyer's market, 5.5 months of inventory. Some things are selling okay and selling within a couple months. Some things aren't selling at all. And we're finally starting to see the withdrawals and expireds really pick up as we get near the end of the year. Why? Because a lot of sellers are going to say, look, if I can't sell by Thanksgiving or if I can't sell by the first week of December, I want to reset the days I want to get to the middle of spring, and then I'm going to bring the house back on the market. It always sounds like a good plan, but I'm going to show you data here on the next chart that's going to explain why that strategy may or may not work. We'll see. You can see supply coming down here on the chart. We're down to maybe 12,000 homes on the market, and it will drop some more as we get into December. But you can look over here on the demand side, which is contracts. That's also falling. So we last month we sat around 2,100, maybe a little less than 2,200 contracts. If we go back to peak 2020 and 2021, we were at 3,100 and 3,200 contracts in a month. So we've dropped off buyers by about 1,000. But if you go back again to maybe like 2016, we're kind of in line with that. So, you go a decade back, we're kind of seeing the same amount of contracts. All right, here's a chart that's eye-opening. This is active versus sold listings for the past 4 years. If you go back to the pandemic, here's the buyers and here's the sellers. They're just struggling to get their head above water. Like literally, we couldn't even get enough supply to keep up with the demand. In fact, we had more demand than supply. You don't even see green on the in the spring of 2021. There was nothing available. And then finally we got some supply, and then it disappeared again over the winter. But look at this. This is 2022. We had about 11,400 homes by late summer, because what happened? Interest rates shot up, and look how quickly inventory spiked up. And then we get to 2023. It wasn't too much worse. It was about 11,500 homes. But then we get to last year, 13,700 homes. And then we get to this year, 15,800 homes. You see a pattern? This inventory spike is going up, up, up. So what's going to happen next spring? Well, unless we get more buyer demand, which is the blue, okay, here's pandemic demand, and each year it's just dropped off a little bit. So unless we get demand coming back up, you're not going to get supply coming back down to balance. It could be worse next year. I hope not. I think rates will help if rates can stay a little lower, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. But unless that happens, we're heading into next year with another opportunity to have record supply to start the year. So again, we're waiting to see this pattern shift, but right now we are in record high supply times. All right, here is mortgage rates. This is probably the best news of the whole video. So rates right now are below 6.25. We're sitting at 6.2. If you're 15-year FHA VA, you're already in the fives. And if I come down to the 3-month chart, so this goes back to September 1st, we've been between 6.2 and 6.4 the whole time. With all the chaos and all the headlines, doesn't matter. We've been sitting nicely at around 6.2, 6.4, which is an average. If you got great credit, if you're putting a good down payment down, I've got several buyers getting offers or loans in the upper 5% range. So look, rates are hanging in there. I don't think it's a rate story anymore. I think it is all about supply, and it is all about demand. Until the buyers feel confident to come back into the market, they feel like their job is secure, they feel like the economy is doing well, they feel that optimism. And that's not something the Austin market's going to control. That is going to be a national story. So pay attention to that. This is the story right here. It's all about supply. So if you are a seller right now, this story is not going away. It's not going away over the winter. It's not going to go away next spring. It's not going to go away next summer or fall. This is going to take a minute to sell all these properties. And even when the market picks back up, well, all those accidental landlords are going to finish out those leases and then bring those properties to market too. So there's even more inventory than what you're seeing here that's waiting to sell. So I think the Redfin story, which says, hey, we're going to get back to normal, we're going to get back to balance, 2030 might not be far off. If you're a buyer, that's all great news for you in reality, because you're going to get lower rates, at least in the next maybe 6 to 12 months. You're going to have plenty of stuff to look at, and the home values aren't going to run away from you for a while, which means you're not going to get into heavy bidding wars and things like that for a minute. You're going to get an opportunity to get into Austin, let things stabilize before the market takes off again. Anyways, hope this video was helpful. If you know somebody looking to buy, sell, invest, or finance, not only in 2025, but now in 2026, would love the opportunity to chat with you. And of course, if you can go to our YouTube channel at Ryan Kelly Group, click that subscribe button. We would love to have you. Anyways, little secret, today is my birthday. December 1, turning another page, and we're starting off kind of cold and drizzly today, but it should be a good week, and look forward to talking with you again next Monday. Thanks.